All right.
Greetings, dear ones.
Yes, hello, dear.
May the peace of the Great Spirit be with you always.
So let us begin with the discussion. The first time I ever talked to Tobias was on an airplane in 1997, and I wasn't particularly spiritual or metaphysical. I was in the business world at the time, and Tobias came in on this plane flight and started talking, and hasn't stopped since. But initially, it was just me talking to Tobias. I hadn't even told Linda about it.
And how long did it take you before you broke it to Linda that this
It was about a year.
So you kept it to yourself for a year?
Yeah.
I received what felt like, what I experienced to be a telepathic contact from Bashar and his people. In that moment of the telepathic contact, a memory actually came back of having made an agreement somewhere prior to this life to do this.
I grew up in a Roman Catholic family of Sicilian immigrants. Most of them, even today, after I've been channeling Joseph for 15 years, don't know what I do. They have some idea, because I don't talk about it to them, and they don't ask me. They know I do something weird.
I was very lucky. I had a lot of support. My friends were very accepting. And that's one thing that I've always been really open about. I didn't really hide it, even from employers, you know, and I've always felt it was really important for me to be honest about that because I saw how it impacted people.
I started in a class where we were really studying making a bridge, an intrapsychic bridge to other sources of intelligence. And so it started in the context of that class.
See, I thought that all of these esoteric things were for older women over 40, and it would have nothing to do with men. So I was dragged to these two guys who channeled for me, and there was something, this was 3 years apart, they both told me the same thing. And that is when I had to start looking at how could guys 20 years apart in age, 3 years apart in ID, who never knew each other, give me information that was identical. And the information just happened to be that there was a master named Cryon who I was supposed to get a hold of.
An arrangement, so to speak, was made prior to the physical life of the channel within what you would call the oversoul of the channel, of which I am also a part. We are part of the same soul. You might refer to me as the channel's future self, and incarnationally speaking, I would look at the channel as my past self, just to put it in linear terms.
We are not happy with the way that things exist currently in our reality. All right, we are from what you would perceive to be the future. And we have come back to our past so that we may learn, all right, and so that we may assist the planet, because what's going on now is going to impact the entire universe.
Well, we would prefer that you ask us, if you like. There's nothing in particular we would like to say, except that we're here, and it's very, very pleasant to be here. It's a delight. It's part of sharing, with the big S, if you might say. The archetype of sharing is something we enjoy embodying.
I've had many, many lifetimes on Earth. I have deep love and compassion for humans because I remember what it was like to go through the things that humans are going through now. I remember the challenge in particular, the challenge of knowing at some deep level that you are a spiritual being.
Our goal is simply to help people live a more joyful, abundant life. And whatever it takes to achieve that, we're willing to do. And so that, in a nutshell, if you will, is our work.
You sit in the energy of a great shift. Many of you are feeling it. Maybe that's why you're watching this now. Maybe there's something that's happened in your life that would allow you for a moment just to open your mind and look inside something you always thought was untenable before, only reserved for those on the lunatic fringe before. Here you find instead wisdom pouring out. Perhaps you'll even feel the love of God pouring out.
There's a lot of things that are being transmuted and altered at this time. All right? You're finding some things out about some of your religious leaders. You're finding some things out about religion that just isn't holding true to you. It's not ringing true to you anymore.
Well, we want to tell you this, is that there is so much here that is hiding. But you must feel it. There has been such a shift in these last years, especially in the last 20 or so.
You're remembering who and what you are, and it doesn't need an intermediary.
This changeover from the old religious system that so many of you are familiar with is difficult, very difficult, because it holds on tightly. Those who have such a strong concept of God as some higher authority and is the only creator, they want to hang on to that dearly. They fear letting God go, their old God, you see, because they are so out of touch with themselves, they can't possibly even contemplate what it's like to have to go inside.
Since so many humans are still part of traditional religion, we realize it's hard for them to accept this concept and for them to absorb it and assimilate it.
There are mavericks out there. There are those who are going outside of the grid. There are those who are taking huge leaps of consciousness within themselves. They're looking inside for the answers rather than letting somebody outside do it for them. They are breaking this pull, this type of magnetism from mass consciousness and going off on their own.
How many aware people on the planet is it going to take that are able to put their awareness into their speech and into their actions before the collective consensus is affected? And that is yet to be determined. No one knows exactly when and how that'll happen.
They are going to be the examples to other humans that you can cross the chasm of old consciousness to new, that you can integrate the human and the divine right here, right now. You don't have to wait till you die to do it. You don't have to wait till your next incarnation. You can do it right here.
You will see within the next 10 and 20 years a change in verbiage as people are able to articulate more about self-responsibility. You're already seeing that. As people are able to articulate more about other levels of consciousness, the higher consciousness, you're already seeing more of that. People talk about it, my higher self, my higher consciousness. And then behaving from that level of integrity is what you will begin to see as well.
Children have always generally had that capacity, and they get learned out of it, shall we say, taught out of it, generally by the age of 3, definitely by the age of 7 in your reality, but now not so much anymore. They are coming through with what you call core fortification.
Because you needed that fresh energy coming to the planet. All right, you needed new ways of thinking and new ways of perceiving.
They are less prone to absorb the telepathic onslaught of negative belief systems from the rest of society. They simply won't participate in those beliefs.
So that's why they are in part your greatest teachers, because they're already ahead of the game in some ways.
You're actually seeing children who will have a different attitude than any children have had before. That is understandable in an evolved species. You are asking whether you, as an older human being, can change, and the answer is absolutely and yes, for you could become childlike.
The wisest you have ever been as human beings is when you were little children. They are just so uninhibited and joyful, and they live in the present moment with joy. They're not thinking about what's going to happen 10 years from now or even 10 minutes from now. They're living in the present moment with joy, and that is the key. You should all be like little children again. That's the best advice we could ever give to anybody.
There's a new wave of channeling that's starting to reemerge with the advent of the the public awareness of quantum physics. Not that everyone is a quantum physicist, but that has opened people up to realizing that consciousness is so far beyond us and we can align with non-physical consciousness.
I receive these blocks of energy, and I can receive a block in half a second, and it'll take me 15, 20, 30 minutes to put it into words.
I have found over the years it gets clearer and clearer. There was a time when my channeling, the kind of channeling I do, was very different. I used to get information, wait, and regurgitate it. Now it's real time, and I feel it in real time in a trance-like state.
The human brain operates on a certain frequency rate, and in channeling, in the altered state, it changes frequency rates. And it becomes something that might be closer in frequency to their reality, which might exist on a higher level. At the same time, he's kind of doing the same thing, altering his frequency, his brain frequency, so that somewhere in the middle, the frequencies sort of meet and lock and become synchronized. And so what you're kind of getting in a channeling, as I understand it, is he's not really speaking a language, he's just sending thoughts. It's getting translated through my body into the language I was raised to understand, which in this case is English.
The changes in my life have been such an astonishing difference between who I used to be, my personality. Let me tell you, I didn't used to like groups, I didn't like people. I chose to be an engineer in a sound booth, so I would not have to deal with people. It's a good call. I can push a button and hear them or not, and then release it or hear them or not. I had full control over my social life. I liked one person at a time, usually a woman. And so that would be my life. I was not a well-read. I was not an orator. I wasn't an in front of the camera guy. No, it isn't me. I know that it isn't me, and I am doing my best to be a purest vessel as I can for what it is.
It's the most comfortable thing I've ever done in my life. Now that I've gotten used to it, it took me about 10 years to get used to it.
Right.
But it's my life's work.
There was a misunderstanding about the law of attraction. The human, the limited human, uses it like this. I want a new car. And they expect it to come to them. Well, it will, but it will probably hit them and send them flying. The limited human says, I need $1,000. I have to be able to pay my rent. Where it is becoming distorted right now is that it is turning into a mental exercise. Somebody out there wants to write a book, hundreds of pages, outlining it. And then the moment the human starts to read that book, they go mental, and then it shuts down, you see. The mind can only go so far. The law of attraction is your spirit, your soul. It is the deepest parts of you. It's not what the brain can conjure up.
We understand that money is one of the symbols of abundance on your planet, and that's all well and good. You can have as much money as you want. But the idea really is to relax the definition that it has to come that way, because then you open the doors through which abundance could come in all the other forms in which abundance could come to simply allow you to do what you need to do when you need to do it. Sometimes that can actually just be being gifted something. That's still a form of abundance when someone gives you a gift, because you're creating a reality that has an open door to accept the idea that you can be given something effortlessly without having to go through any specific machinations to make it happen.
Society will tell you that you have to do X, Y, and Z in order to achieve a particular result, and we'll tell you that's not true. What has to be is that your vibrational state has to be in alignment.
The idea is to also examine the belief systems where you might be resistant to the idea of abundance, because many of you have belief systems unconsciously that actually keep the idea of the experience of abundance at bay.
The person is conditioned for some degree of abundance or non-abundance, depending on the pre-existing conditions with the parents growing up.